Hello and welcome back to I Made This. My name's Ollie and today I am making Miles Morales from Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. As you can see, I start off as usual by covering my armature in tin foil just to bulk it out so I don't use too much plasticine, it's not too heavy. This time I kind of left a gap in the middle so I could articulate the waist a bit better. Now I'm just bulking the character out with a bit of black plasticine. I mean, his suit is all black apart from a few red highlights. To break it up a little bit, I kind of put a bit of blue into the black so it's not fully black. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but it was a fantastic film. It blew me away when I saw it at the cinema. I thought Miles was a great character. I think the way he came about was quite interesting as well. Like, you know, it's a mixture of the rumours or speculation or just fan casting of Donald Glover being Spider-Man before they made the Amazing Spider-Man. Also, President Barack Obama was a massive inspiration to the creation of Miles Morales, and I think he was even on the cover of an issue of Spider-Man. I think it might actually be his favourite superhero character, I'm not entirely sure, because I know he does read comic books. But yeah, Miles was definitely a much needed character in the Spider-Man and the Marvel universe, and one that's kind of fans have really come to love over the years. I'm not exactly sure when his first issue was, if he was in the main Ultimates line of comics, because I kind of dropped out of those at about 2006-07. So here I'm just filling out the back, just kind of filling in all those gaps so you can't see in the tin foil or the armature underneath. Yeah, as usual, just using the hairdryer. Be careful not to burn your fingers, as I tend to do, because I get overexcited and want to work with it straight away with the plasticine and kind of end up singeing my fingers on the hairdryer. Not very good. Just doing the feet here. Again, don't do this with a hairdryer, you'll end up burning your fingers. Just building up some detail around the crotch area here, so his legs don't sag down and they blend nicely into the rest of the body. I'm constantly smoothing down the character and making it as streamlined as I possibly can. Some people prefer their characters to look like they've got fingerprints all over them. Some people, like myself, like them to look a bit smoother. You know, it's just personal preference really. Just building out some muscle definition now, just to the shoulders first of all. Just building out the hands now. You might notice I'm a bit sporadic with how I do things. And you know, I do things as I fancy them. I don't do them in any particular order. I don't do like both legs and then both arms. I'll kind of do a bit of an arm, a bit of a leg, and then go back and forth. Don't know why. I think it's just my brain, to be honest. It's just how it's wired. Just building out the chest here before doing the abdomen. You know when you say a word too many times. Abdomen. Anyway, doing the calf muscles there. And now I'm doing the bum. You've got to have a bum. I mean, everyone's got a bum. But yeah, going back to the Miles Morales and Into the Spider-Verse, I mean, like, no one knew that film was going to be what it was. Like, I'm pretty much sure everyone was just, you know, it was by the guys who did 21 Jump Street and all that, and I think, you know, everyone kind of, I don't think people wrote it off, but they were just thinking, well, it's just an animated Spider-Man film, what's so special about that? I mean, I'm probably guilty of that maybe, but like the moment I sat down and watched it, I was just blown away. The characterization of Peter B. Parker and Miles Morales was just fantastic. And I'm interested to see where it goes in the second one, which is, I believe, out later this year. Yeah, so now I'm just doing some red highlights on the costume. I could have just stuck these over the top, but I decided to actually cut into the costume and like bury it into the sculpt, so it actually felt flush and streamlined with the rest of the costume. I mean, if I was to animate this, it'd probably be better to put it on the top, because if you start moving those arms around, you're going to see the gaps where, you know, the red and the black hasn't kind of adhered properly. Just smoothing it out now, just making it look as flush as I possibly can. With the fingers, I tried a new method. Basically what I did was I got an Allen key, the one that you actually tighten up the armature with, and just kind of rolled the plasticine onto it, and it just, you take it off and you put it over the fingers, it just fits right on. These hands are quite ingenious actually from the Animation Supplies armature, because they use heat shrink over the fingers, so it kind of helps hold the hands together, and so that they don't break as easy. Yeah, it's a little bit time consuming, but it's well worth the effort. I can't wait for the next Spiderverse film. I know that they're introducing Spider-Man 2099. I know he was kind of briefly in the post-credit sequence where they do the famous Spider-Man pointing meme. But yeah, can't wait. I really enjoyed the game as well that came out a couple of years ago, the Miles Morales one, and the Spider-Man one as well that came out a few years prior to that. And you got the sequel coming out, it's got a Venom in it. I mean, I'm not the biggest Venom fan in the world ever, but those games kind of won me over with their gameplay and that, and, kind of a bit like the Arkham video games, that kind of thing, and I love those games as well. Just a big open world city where you kind of live your fantasies out as being Spider-Man. It's brilliant. Just adding some details to his feet now, because I think he's got some like treads. They're almost like trainer treads, I think, in the film, but I'm just going to do like a little red trim around the base of his foot. I tend not to do a sole to the foot unless it's actually seen, because what's the point? Now I'm doing the logo on the chest. Instead of doing this as like a one-piece thing that I did a stencil and just kind of cut around, I decided to do like the little sausages and kind of roll them around and kind of place them, and then just kind of flatten them out, and then using the scalpel tool kind of pick out the detail just so it looks a bit more sharper. Just doing the back now. That is not a snotty tissue rag, that is in fact a wet wipe that I use to kind of keep the character nice and clean. I mean, I'm trying to make these videos look a bit nicer, and I didn't do a very good job with this bit here, as you can see, because there's a nice ugly rag underneath him. I'll try and be a bit better next time. But yeah, just kind of cutting out those details, making them look a little bit sharper and a bit crisper. Just preparing the neck, getting ready to do the head. I mean, in terms of heads, this is probably one of the easiest ones I've done, because it's literally just a big black ball with two big white eyes on it. So I'm just sketching out a stencil now for Miles's eyes. They're kind of like the Mark Bagley kind of eyes, where he had the massive kind of expressive eyes in the Ultimate comic books. I'm not entirely sure if Mark Bagley designed Miles. I'm pretty sure he did. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, he had those big expressive eyes in all those comics, and I think he drew pretty much most of the run. I know Brian Michael Bendis wrote pretty much every single issue of that as well, before I think the character got merged into the main Marvel timeline. Not too sure. But anyway, yeah, so I'm just cutting out the eyes now, so that when I put the white in, that they kind of flush with the head, kind of like I did with the detail with the red in the costume. I kind of like the fact that this was actually like it's one of the deceased Peter Parker costumes that Aunt May gives to Miles Morales, and he sprays it up. And it's kind of like, that's why the logo is kind of like dripping with paint and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. I genuinely thought we walked into the 3D screening of the film when we saw it at the cinema, because of the way that it's kind of got that split RGB look. And when it came out on Blu-ray, I've got a 3D TV, so I really wanted the 3D edition. And they didn't release that in the UK on Blu-ray, so I managed to find a copy in France, where I think it's called Spider-Man Generations or Spider-Man Next Generation. But what I didn't what didn't come to my mind was the fact that there's loads of text on the screen, isn't there? Kind of like all the comic book panels and things like that, and all the kind of, you know, the comics bursts that kind of appear on the screen. Well, they're all in French. So yeah, I didn't think that through. I mean, you know, I don't think it's really essential for the story, but it just made me laugh when I was watching it. I was really pleased with how this head turned out, actually. I mean, obviously Spider-Man has a lot of detail in terms of like the webbing on his costume, but I thought if I was to put it on this character, it's just going to get lost, and the more I move it around, it's just going to get smudged around. I think the webbing in the film, it's kind of like a light blue grey, and I thought if I was to do that, it's just going to look terrible. And if I carve it out, it just wouldn't look very good. So I just kind of opted to leave it off. And because I like to make life difficult for myself, I decided to make a second head, and did Miles's unmasked head. So now I've built out the nose and I've put the eyes in, I start to build up the details like defining the jawline and adding the brows. Now I'm just adding the ears, which I then trim just so they don't look too big, and then kind of seal them to the side of the head so they don't fall off. If you're wondering why he doesn't look like the Miles from the film or the comics or the game or whatever, it's because I decided to put my own little spin on him and do it my own style. That's my excuse anyway. And I'm sticking to it. Just doing the hair now. I start out by doing the hairline. And then I bulk it out by adding the top of the, well, I guess the afro. And then I start attaching it to the hairline so it looks seamless, and then I start bulking it out with a bit more detail around the sides and the back. And then this tool that I'm using, I use just to kind of add a bit of detail to the hair, so it kind of gives it a bit of shape and almost like it's a bit fluffy or curly. I'm not exactly sure, but it seems to work. I'm just doing the eyebrows now and kind of just using the scalpel tool to make them a bit sharper. And voila, here he is in all of his glory. And because us animators are a glutton for punishment, I thought I'd go one step further. Originally I thought I'd make this a bit shorter than the Canada episode, like, you know, just to a simple character who's kind of, his costume is all one colour or whatever, but Miles has kind of like another look in the film, which is kind of just before he kind of is fully revealed in his kind of final Spider-Man form. And I guess this is like his transitional period when he's kind of, he's not losing the Miles persona, but he's kind of losing the baggage that Miles has before he just fully embraces being Spider-Man. And he has this kind of hoodie, bomber jacket, shorts and trainers kind of look over the top of his new costume. And yeah, I really like it. I thought it was a pretty cool look for Spider-Man, to be honest. Like the animation in that film, I think is fantastic as well, especially how they go from, you know, 12 frames a second to 24 frames a second within the same shot, and then they also add like actual hand-drawn animation on top of the CGI and things like that. I think it was truly revolutionary in terms of how it looks. And I'm just waiting because there's going to be a billion films that just kind of emulate it and try and rip it off and kind of oversaturate it, so to the point where you kind of get a bit annoyed about it. But actually Mitchell's versus the Machines came out, which kind of uses the same kind of techniques and styles, and I believe is made by a lot of the same people who worked on the Spiderverse, and that was fantastic as well. Brilliant film. Like, if you haven't seen that, check that out. It's on Netflix. Doing that hood was a pain in the arse because just making clothing in plasticine is quite difficult. Like, as I said, I keep saying this, but if I was to animate this, I'd probably actually use real miniature clothing with wire armatures inside of it. I mean, normally I prefer kind of keeping everything consistent, so everything's plasticine. But yeah, the reason why I'd probably use fabric over plasticine for clothing is purely for time and ease, to be honest, because if you're working very fast and on a low budget, you know, you don't want to have to constantly spend all your time fixing your characters, patching up the costumes that are going to tear or, you know, distort, because, you know, that's what plasticine does. Even companies like Aardman that, you know, made their bread and butter in claymation and that pretty much barely use plasticine now. They tend to use make molds and use rubber and silicone characters that will appear to look like plasticine but are in fact not. Now I'm just bulking out the bomber jacket now. A bit like Canada's last week, you've kind of got to like bulk it out a bit to make it, you know, a bit puffier. And now I'm doing his Nike trainers. I'd say I kind of rushed these a little bit. They're not the best, but they do the job. As you could see earlier, the hands kind of got a bit crushed from doing the poses from the earlier look, so I had to redo his hands again. Just adding some detail now to the trainers, doing the white soles. I have in the past actually done the feet in FIMO so that, you know, as you're moving around they don't mush around, but that was back in the days when I kind of used magnets for everything. But now I tend to use tie downs when I'm doing walk cycles or, you know, having a character stand and stuff. And you can't really use FIMO for that because you have to actually screw into the foot. So yeah, I tend to just use plasticine now and just be very careful. Just doing the tongs now before building back over with the red to kind of make it like it's overlapping over the top. Now I think overall to make this character it probably took me about 10 to 11 hours. You know, quite a long time. Just doing the laces now. And doing the fingers using that same method of the Allen key, or you know, you can use a cocktail stick or anything just to kind of get that tube shape onto the actual plasticine. Just doing his belt, he's got a little white belt on his costume. Just doing the little eyelets or whatever you call them, I'm not sure what you call them actually on a loopholes. Doing the cuffs now to the jacket. Just adding a zipper to the hoodie. And now I'm adding another zipper, but to the jacket this time. And I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a Carhartt jacket that he's wearing. I'm not too sure. I could have got this wrong. I did like a little Carhartt logo on his chest there. Just doing the collar of the jacket, adding a little bit of detail. Now I'm just adding some final touches like a pull cord to the hoodie. And voila, he's done. And yeah, there he is. Please don't forget to check me out on Instagram and on Facebook. Just search for I Made This and you'll find me. I actually post additional photos and videos of things that I make on there. And now we've come to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a little like, or you know, even better, subscribe to the channel. Every week or so I'll have new makes, be it a claymation character, a toy, or a behind the scenes look of a music video or a film that I'm working on. There'll always be something to come back to. So yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.